Astor Heights Academy wasn't just a school. It was a crown perched atop the green hills of Greenwich, Connecticut, polished, revered, and glinting with the smug shine of old money. Ivy curled along the ancient stone walls like it had signed an NDA to whisper secrets only to those who mattered, the ones with last names longer than phone numbers, the ones who didn't just attend galas, they hosted them. The drop-off lane on Tuesday mornings looked more like the entrance to a luxury car convention. Matte black Range Rovers, gleaming Teslas with custom plates, a vintage Rolls-Royce that, rumor had it, had been driven by royalty, mothers in cashmere capes and fathers in custom-fitted Zegna suits kissed across car windows like it was Fashion Week in Paris. And then there was her. She didn't glide out of a Mercedes. She stepped off the sidewalk, her worn flats silent against the cobblestone path. Her linen shirt, pressed but simple, caught the breeze like it had nothing to prove. A canvas tote, frayed slightly at the corners, hung from her shoulder. Inside, her son's homemade lunch, a well-loved library book, and a sketch pad filled with ideas for community gardens and after-school art clubs. She was, understated, which at Astor Heights was practically a crime. At 38, Elise Harper had the kind of quiet grace you couldn't purchase even with platinum cards. Brown eyes that held both warmth and warning, hair the color of chestnut bark, loosely braided, a smile that said, "I see you, and I'm not here to impress you." She walked her son, Theo, to the gates every morning. No nannies, no drivers, just a mother and a boy who still held her hand when the wind felt a little too cold. The other parents? They noticed. "Oh, here comes the linen lady," one whispered, adjusting her diamond cuff. "Maybe she's the help," another offered, with the kind of smirk that cost more than Elise's entire outfit. "No, she's his mom," a third replied, her tone thick with sweet poison. "Poor thing." Probably on scholarship. Their laughter was soft, polite, and surgical, the kind that didn't need to be loud because it knew it would echo anyway. And Elise? She didn't flinch. She never did. She simply kissed Theo's forehead and whispered, "Reach for the stars, okay?" Theo, 9 years old, with his mother's eyes and his father's quiet focus, nodded. His backpack had no monogram and no AirPods dangling from the straps. Just a simple tag, Theo H., future astronomer. He walked through the gates. They walked back to their Range Rovers, and Elise walked home alone, but not small. Some schools teach math, some teach science, and some teach cruelty with a smile. But kindness walks differently, quieter, slower, and with far more strength than they'll ever understand. It began with a flyer, folded neatly, slipped with quiet precision into Elise's mailbox, like a venomous snake curling under her door. At first glance, it looked official, school letterhead, Astor Heights, seal in gold ink. But the headline, "Petition to Preserve Our Standards," the words were polite, almost sterile, but Elise knew sterilized language could carry the deadliest intent. It didn't name names. Of course not. That would be too obvious, too uncouth. But the phrasing left no room for misinterpretation. Certain families failed to reflect the excellence and legacy of Astor Heights. "We must uphold admissions aligned with our community's values." Underneath 30 signatures' names she'd heard whispered at PTA meetings, seen embroidered on donor plaques: Meredith Lang, Preston Tate, Sylvia Crane. Elise ran her fingers over the paper, as if it might dissolve in her hand. It didn't. At the next meeting, the air was thick with perfume, power, and polite hostility, the kind where smiles were sharper than knives, and every chair felt like a throne. Meredith Lang stood to speak. She was beautiful, in that surgically practiced way, cheekbones that looked hand-carved, lips like a threat wrapped in gloss. Her voice dripped with synthetic sweetness. "Some of us," she said, with a flutter of her eyelashes, "feel the school has lost focus that our community deserves. Better representation." Chairs shifted. Nods followed like loyal soldiers. Someone whispered, "She means the Harpers," From the back of the room, Elise didn't move. Her tote bag rested on her lap like armor. Victor Crane cleared his throat and added with a smirk, "It's distracting. A kid talking about stars all the time. What are we? A planetarium?" A polite ripple of laughter danced through the room. Someone recorded it. Elise saw the flash of a phone screen, her face still, unreadable, caught in pixels. They expected her to protest, to cry, to crumble. She did none of those things. She rose, smoothed her linen sleeve, and walked out, flyer folded tightly in her hand. Her steps were silent, but inside her, something had begun to burn. When you don't fit into the mold, they try to shatter you. But some women are made of steel disguised as linen, and their silence isn't weakness, it's wind. Before the storm, the fall fundraiser was an Astor Heights ritual, held in the school's atrium under glass chandeliers. It was less about supporting education and more about showcasing designer gowns and donor clout. Elise wore a simple cream dress. No sequins, no shimmer. Her clutch, a gift from her college days, faded, soft but real. She stood alone, studying the auction display. Theo's project, a hand-drawn star chart, carefully inked constellations labeled with handwritten notes in his neat 9-year-old script. The stars that make us dream. To Elise, it was breathtaking. To the mothers in Cartier and Valentino, "Oh, Elise, how quaint," Meredith said, sipping from her flute of Veuve Clicquot. "Did he use crayons from the dollar store?" Sylvia Crane leaned in, her diamonds catching the light like barbed wire. "Must be nice to look at stars when you can't afford a telescope." Laughter circled her like wolves around prey. Then came the dagger. Preston Tate walked up, smirking, and flicked a $1 bill onto the display. For the next masterpiece, more laughter. Someone filmed it. Of course, they did. But Elise simply reached down, adjusted the corner of Theo's board, and whispered, "Even stars burn through the darkness before they shine. Some people wear power like jewelry, others carry it like quiet fire." And in that moment, her grace was the most valuable thing in the room. The cafeteria incident wasn't planned, but it wasn't accidental either. Carter Lang and his gang had been circling Theo like sharks around blood. It started with taunts, "Linen boy." They called him Toad Baby. But that day it escalated. As Theo walked to the trash, balancing his tray, Carter accidentally bumped into him. Mashed potatoes, gravy, on his head. His sweater was soaked. His dignity was erased. Phones came out. Laughter rippled. Teachers looked away. Theo stood there, frozen, not crying, not yelling, just still. Somewhere a video was captioned, "Charity case gets served." That night, Theo said it was no big deal. But his hands trembled when Elise brushed gravy from his collar. "It was an accident," he whispered. But Elise knew better. She tucked him in. Then I sat in the dark kitchen, staring at the flyer again. The silence of that night wasn't defeat. It was a fuse. Children are cruel, but the real tragedy, the adults who teach them how, and sometimes silence is the loudest scream. At the next parent-teacher conference, Elise asked to see Theo's progress. Ms. Kendall, his science teacher, leaned back with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Theo's unique, but perhaps a bit too focused on space. He struggles to connect with other children. Elise raised an eyebrow. "Because he draws constellations." Ms. Kendall shrugged. "It distracts from the group dynamic. Honestly, maybe a less competitive environment would suit him." Then Elise saw it. On the teacher's open laptop, a group chat, a message from Meredith Lang, "Keep the Harper kid in check. He's embarrassing us." Below it is a meme of Theo's chart photoshopped onto a cereal box, now with 50% less dignity. And Ms. Kendall, she chuckled. That night, Elise didn't cry. She opened her sketchpad and began to draw, not stars, not flowers, but a blueprint of something bigger. There's a special place in hell for teachers who mock, the ones they're meant to protect. But there's a special fire inside mothers who see it. It hit 50,000 views in 24 hours. The cafeteria footage slowed and looped, set to a mock soundtrack. Another one bites the dust. Comments were brutal. Free lunch with extra sauce. Linen boy finally gets some flavor. Where's the tote mom now? Elise didn't see it until a neighbor texted her the link. She watched in silence. Her hand trembled. Her throat tightened. But her eyes? They sharpened. At pickup, whispers chased her. She's still here. Didn't she see the video? But Elise didn't answer them. She knelt beside Theo and said quietly, "Tell me what really happened, baby." And he did. All of it. Her response wasn't rage. It was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that made people nervous. Viral fame can ruin reputations, but it can also awaken revolutions, especially when the quiet ones finally rise. Elise requested the security footage. Dr. Warwick, the principal, smiled like a politician. These things happen, Mrs. Harper. Boys will be boys, Elise replied, voice steady. And I am a mother. Asking for proof. Before the principal could dodge again, Meredith Lang stormed in, heels like gunshots. Who do you think you are? Barging in like you own the place. Elise turned. No, I don't own this place. I helped build it, gasps. Whispers. Phones raised. You taught my son the most painful lesson of his life, Elise said, voice steady. Thank you. Now let me teach you something better, she turned, and walked out, but not before looking Meredith in the eye and smiling just enough to scare her. Some storms arrive in thunder. Others wear linen and smile, and both will leave you drenched in truth. It started with a low hum. Students looked up. Teachers froze mid-sentence. Espresso cups trembled in the lounge. Then it came. A sleek, obsidian black helicopter, descending like judgment. Its blades roared across the Astor Heights field, churning dust and disbelief. Harper Global Initiatives. The name shimmered on the side like a signature. Wait, Harper. As in that Harper, the Harper? From the cabin emerged a man in a gray shirt sleeves rolled, collar open. He didn't wear power. He carried it like a second skin. Graham Harper. The man who rebuilt shattered telecoms in disaster zones. The man who didn't make speeches, he made moves. He walked straight to the oak tree, where Elise sat with Theo. No paparazzi. No grandstanding. Just a father kneeling beside his son. Hey, buddy, Graham said, brushing a hand through Theo's hair. Yo, okay? Theo nodded, his voice quiet. They poured gravy on me. Graham's jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. Then he stood. Silence fell like snow. As Graham turned to face the crowd, I heard someone said my wife didn't belong here. Meredith shrank, her crimson lips now pale. That my son should sit alone, be humiliated, mocked. Filmed, Dr. Warwick stuttered. Mr. Harper? I assure you this is all a moral failure, Graham interrupted. Of the highest order, gasps. Phones came out again. Elise stood now, beside her husband, calm, collected. She opened the folder handed to her by his assistant. I'm Elise Harper, she said, voice ringing across the lawn, co-founder of the Silent Schools Project, a fund that has anonymously donated over $18 million to this institution. A ripple of shock spread. A champagne flute shattered in someone's hand. We chose to stay invisible, she continued, to see how this school treats those who seem small. Now we know, Graham added quietly. Effective immediately, Harper Global withdraws all funding from Astor Heights. Every grant, every scholarship, gone. And we're withdrawing Theo, Elise said. He deserves better than this. The fallout was nuclear. Front page, elite school, loses billionaire, backing after bullying scandal. Hashtag AstorShame trended for days. Parents pulled their children. Donors vanished. Teachers resigned. Meredith Lang, her charity gala, was canceled. Her face was wiped from every socialite magazine. Carter? Expelled. His face now a meme. Gravy boy. Ms. Kendall? License revoked. Preston Tate? His stock plunged. And Elise? She didn't gloat. She built. 6 months later, Harper Academy opened its doors. Free tuition for half its students. No dress codes, only respect codes. Solar panels, community gardens, and a plaque in the hallway for every child who ever felt invisible. Theo gave the opening speech. Some people want to live among stars. I just want to study them with friends who don't care what shoes I wear. Cheers. Real ones. That night, Elise tucked him in. Are you still mad at those people? Theo asked. She smiled. No, sweetheart. They reminded us who we'll never become, and that is enough. Outside, the stars blinked, and somewhere in the dark, a little boy once mocked. As Linen Boy had become a light, others could follow. She wore linen. They wore armor. But in the end, truth wore the crown, because the most powerful people don't shout, they build.